Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Jill confronts Kane after Nick goes rogue. While Nick Newman goes rogue, Jill Abbott will face Kane Ashby. Jill broke up the conversation between Kane and Jack Abbott because she needed to clarify some information she had recently discovered. Jill wanted to hear Kane's side of the story when Eric Braden's character, Victor Newman, revealed that Kane had accumulated his wealth through his father's most recent scam. When she was with Victor, Jill acted as though she didn't believe his story, but her expression when she left the Newman ranch was clear. Jill was furious over the news, and it doesn't seem like she will listen to Kane as he gives his version of events. However, Kane will also face his ex-wife, Lily Winters, in Thursday's episode, so Jill won't be the only person confronting him. Both good and bad news spread quickly, and Lily will want to express her feelings to Kane. Returning to Jack, YNR spoilers suggest that he will honor his father, John Abbott, by defending the interests of the Abbott family. Although Jack has been determined to stop Kane, he ought to be more concerned about Victor. At last, Nick will rebel. Nick and Phyllis Summers got into a fight at Society when the fans last saw him. Phyllis reminded Nick that he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, so it would be easy for him to say something like that when he was attempting to persuade her to end her partnership with Kane. Will Nick take extraordinary measures to disprove Phyllis? Could he leave Newman to launch his own business for the nth time? However, this may be related to his visit to Los Angeles. After Victor spills the tea, Jill rushes to confront Kane, and Tessa gives Daniel a tender embrace. As Nikki notes that Kane is still being dishonest after all these years, Victor gripes at the ranch about Jill giving him the benefit of the doubt. That Victor believes he can make Jill reconsider him perplexes her. Jill maintains that Kane has backed off when they confront him about threatening everyone in the community. There won't be a war, she asserts with assurance. Unconvinced, the Newmans inform Jill that she obviously has no idea how Kane created his empire. The truth isn't pretty. Jill Victor Nikki. Jill tells them that Kane did a great job running the legitimate company that Colin gave him. The notion that Atkinson was changed makes Victor laugh. Nikki informs her that the DeLeon family was defrauded of the nice chateau. Victor claims that it was Colin's last task, and Kane could not have been unaware of it or even involved in it. Jill. Naturally, Jill doesn't want to accept this, but Victor says he has a letter from Madame DeLeon to one of Colin's false identities. Letters can be falsified, Jill argues, protruding her chin. Victor cautions her that if she supports Kane, she is making a mistake. Jill is adamant that Kane would not deceive her. To cut to the chase, Victor states that Ashby has faith in her and that they require her to obtain the AI software. Amused, Jill assumes Victor wants her to give it to him. Is Jack going to get anywhere? Ashby claims to have been waiting for Jack as he arrives at the Kane train. Jack looks at his casual attire and concludes that it was a difficult night and that his conscience is playing tricks on him. They argue over why Ashby chose to play stick with Billy instead of carrot. Jack criticizes Kane for treating Billy cruelly and notes that he also suffers from unhealthy obsessions. Kane acknowledges that he and Billy are too similar. He informs Jack that he has made the decision to give everything up and is re-evaluating his goals. Kane. Ashby's statements are not credible to Jack. Kane is adamant about resetting. Prove it, Jack says. Delete this software application. Put it in a permanent grave and destroy it. Smirking, Kane questions who would be in charge of that. Jack, do you have someone in mind? To which Jack responds, I actually do. Me. Jack YNR. Kane, who is still grinning and extremely amused, doesn't think Jack will destroy it either because he could want to use it against Victor. Jack claims that he and the mustache are now in agreement. Kane thinks it would be entertaining to present it to Billy or Phyllis. No one is enjoying themselves, Jack sniffs. As they accuse him of doing, Kane reminds out that they all have their own agendas. Kane smile YNR. Jack says Kane should have faith in one person. Jill. Ashby laughs. Isn't this the reason Jack called her back to town? Kane becomes serious and says he's not a monster and that Chancellor was simply there to help make peace between Billy and Jill for her benefit. Kane shrugs that it's the truth, but Jack is doubtful. They argue over whether Billy would have ruined the business. Kane informs Jack that he understood Billy was too unpredictable to accept what he was giving. Kane notes that although Jack doesn't like this, he also turned his back on Billy and declared, "Enough is enough." Is Daniel able to calm Tessa? Daniel and Tessa discuss how Sharon will respond to the truth about Mariah in the park. Daniel reassures her that she is resilient. Tessa shifts her focus to Mariah's safety from the man she attacked. In the clinic, Daniel warns her that the man cannot reach her. Maybe we need to get to him first, Tessa thinks. Tessa. Daniel expresses doubt about going up to Hensley, pointing out that Mariah could not be the only person in risk. Tessa pouts that it was a stupid idea after realizing he could figure out who she is. This is so frustrating, she screams. Daniel hopes Chance could be there to counsel them. Tessa complains that Ian Ward is haunting Mariah from the afterlife. How do you handle a man who isn't actually there? Tessa. As Tessa babbles about needing to know what transpired in that room, they pace around. Daniel cautions her to maintain her grounding. Tessa makes the decision that she must visit Mariah and inform her of what transpired. Daniel fears Tessa will be let down if Mariah declines to see her. Daniel acknowledges that she is a force and that she is unfazed. His emotions come to the surface as he enumerates her other qualities. He swallows them back and tells Tessa that he hopes their story ends happily. The last scenes. We're continuing working on the AI software at the ranch, and Jill believes Victor wants her to obtain it from Kane and give it to him. What could go wrong? With ease, Victor tells her that it would shield Chancellor from harm. It would give him tremendous power, as Jill wisely notes. Victor offers to email her a copy of the De Leon letter, and she leaves. She grimaces outside. Jill. Victor tells Nikki inside that he anticipates Jill running straight to Jack Abbott. He will assure her that Kane poses a threat and inform her that they have a remedy. Nikki is curious as to whether Victor will kill the AI program. All Victor wants is for Kane to think he's ruined it. Nikki inquires as to whether he intends to use it against Jabot. Did he join Jack in order to stab him in the back? Victor laughs. End of Victor Nikki. Tessa lists all the ways Daniel has supported her in the park. He's just glad he was able to do it. He's been more than just a friend, Tessa replies, putting her hand on his arm. My best friend has been you. She draws him into a hug. Tessa Daniel. Since Ashby forgave Colin, Jack believes he can comprehend his complex relationship with Billy on the Kane train. Kane is adamant that his dad changed. Kane claims to have witnessed it as well as Jill enters. Jill requests a private conversation with Kane. Jack wants to talk to someone. Jill questions whether, like Billy and Victor, he will attempt to inundate her mind with unfavorable remarks about Kane. Is it working? Asks Jack. Well, that's still up in the air, Jill responds. Kane appears uneasy. Jill is forced to face the Chancellor's legacy by Kane's battle for redemption. At Chancellor, Kane's restless spirit clashed with Jack's insistence on evidence, leading Jill to choose between legacy and loyalty. The Kane-Jack Abbott's demand for evidence and Ashby's restless quest for atonement met head-on, trapping Jill Abbott in a conflict that went well beyond familial relations. Not only did two men face off, but there was also a reckoning over Catherine Chancellor's legacy, Billy Abbott's fate, and whether or not Kane could ever be trusted again. Weary, Kane admitted to Jack that he was wondering about his identity as a result of his decisions. For a man who was more renowned for his plots than his self-awareness, it was an uncommon instance of vulnerability. Jack grabbed the opportunity and forced Kane to destroy the AI program at the core of his expanding power in order to demonstrate that he genuinely wanted change. However, Kane objected. He maintained that it would be unwise to give up the AI, and even worse, that Jack's intentions were not as honorable as he claimed. Kane thought Jack's promise of repentance sounded more like a plot to gain personal power. Billy, a well-known tender spot, became the focal point of the disagreement. In order to feed Billy's instability rather than aid in his recovery, Jack accused Kane of taking advantage of his fears. Billy's downward slide was his own fault, Kane retorted, and anyone who continued to think Billy could be saved was fooling themselves. Jack's determination to stand up for his brother was further bolstered by his shortcomings. Billy, to Kane, represented unrealized potential and served as a reminder of why he doesn't believe in reform pledges. Their argument was more about the definition of redemption than it was about Billy personally. Jill at the fork in the road. The argument heated up when Jill arrived. Jack persuaded her to realize that Kane hadn't changed since he hadn't destroyed the AI. Reminding Jill that she had supported him when no one else had, Kane relied on her past defense of him. Jill had a clear choice: stand with Jack and declare Kane unredeemable, or back Kane and jeopardize Catherine's memory and Chancellor's image. For Jill, this was about more than simply business. It was about her identity as a woman who, despite being burnt once, believes in second chances. The legacy at risk. The background of the standoff was what made it so explosive. Chancellor Industries, a business founded on devotion, tenacity, and integrity, has long been seen as a representation of Catherine's ideals. The question of whether Kane belongs anywhere near the corporation is very important because of Victor's circling and the growing corporate conflict. In addition to determining Kane's course, Jill's choice will determine whether Chancellor's legacy is one of betrayal or redemption. Horizontal fallout. Kane is not prepared to cede power, even if it means losing his opportunity for forgiveness, as evidenced by his refusal to comply with Jack's demand. Jack and Kane are at odds because of Jack's need to keep Billy safe, while Chancellor Industries is in a limbo because of Jill's hesitation. Every area of Genoa City is expected to be affected by the fallout. Billy's reputation might be further damaged, Jill's allegiances put to the test, and Kane's children and estranged relatives will have to face the truth about him. 3 families may be redefined as a result of the ongoing fight for redemption. The storm inside Genoa City had been building for weeks, with hidden truths, corporate betrayals, and family vendettas simmering just beneath the surface, but it all came crashing together when Jill Abbott finally decided she couldn't stay silent anymore and confronted Kane Ashby head-on after Nick Newman went rogue, shaking the very foundation of Newman Enterprises and Chancellor Industries alike. Jill, sharp-eyed and more cunning than anyone ever gave her credit for, had pretended to play along with Victor Newman's carefully constructed narrative when he first whispered the poisonous accusation that Kane had not only built his fortune on a scam orchestrated by his father Colin but had actively profited from it in ways that could permanently stain Catherine Chancellor's legacy. Jill may have feigned disbelief while seated on Victor's plush couch at the Newman Ranch, but the second she left those gilded doors, her expression told the real story: fury, betrayal, and a relentless determination to get to the bottom of things. Jill had spent a lifetime fighting for Chancellor, protecting its reputation, and defending her family against outsiders, but now she was forced to confront the unthinkable, that Kane, the man she had once defended so passionately, might be just another con artist in disguise, no better than Colin himself. When she tracked him down in the middle of a tense exchange with Jack Abbott, Jill's timing could not have been more brutal, because Jack was already demanding that Kane destroy the AI software he had secretly developed, a program so powerful it could change the balance of corporate warfare in Genoa City. Jack's plea had been laced with moral righteousness, arguing that Chancellor Industries was built on Catherine's honesty and resilience, not deception and manipulation, and if Kane truly wanted redemption, he needed to prove it by obliterating the very weapon that gave him leverage. Kane, ever the sly negotiator, had laughed in Jack's face, questioning whether Jack himself would actually resist the temptation to use the software against Victor, Phyllis, or even his own brother Billy. Their argument had spiraled into bitter recriminations over Billy's weaknesses, Kane claiming that Billy was a lost cause while Jack clung to his belief in his brother's fragile redemption. But everything shifted when Jill stormed in, her voice like a blade slicing through the tension, demanding that Kane look her in the eye and tell her whether Victor's allegations were true. The weight of Catherine Chancellor's memory hung heavy in the room, as Jill stood at the crossroads of loyalty and legacy, torn between her instinct to defend Kane as she had so many times before and the growing evidence that he had once again allowed greed and power to lead him astray. Kane tried to spin his story, insisting that he wasn't the monster everyone wanted to paint him as, reminding Jill that he had once fought to preserve Chancellor when Billy's reckless decisions nearly destroyed it, but Jill's patience had worn thin. Her voice trembled with anger as she accused him of betraying her trust, of dragging Catherine's name through the mud, and of tarnishing the company she had spent her life protecting. Jack seized the opportunity, urging Jill to see that Kane hadn't changed, that his refusal to destroy the software proved he was still scheming. But Kane, defiant to the last, turned the tables, accusing Jack of manipulating Jill, of using Catherine's legacy as a weapon to serve his own agenda, and of conveniently ignoring his own ruthless tactics whenever it suited him. Jill found herself caught between two men, each appealing to her sense of loyalty, each invoking Catherine's name, and each demanding that she choose a side. Meanwhile, across town, Nick Newman's rebellion was brewing into something far more dangerous than Victor or Phyllis had anticipated. His fight with Phyllis at Society had left him raw, furious, and more determined than ever to prove that he wasn't just another entitled Newman riding on his father's coattails. Phyllis had cut him deep by reminding him that he had been born with a silver spoon, dismissing his attempts to sway her away from Kane as hypocritical and self-serving, and in that moment Nick decided that if no one was going to take him seriously within Newman Enterprises, he would carve his own path, even if it meant walking away from the family empire once again. But this time, Nick's rebellion had a sharper edge, one connected to whispers of a secret trip to Los Angeles, where he had uncovered damning information that could topple Kane's carefully constructed empire. The so-called secret file that Nick carried wasn't just leverage, it was a potential death sentence for Kane's credibility, proof of the De Leon family scam that Victor had hinted at, a trail of evidence that tied Kane directly to Colin's final con. While Jill was confronting Kane with the fire of betrayal in her eyes, Nick was quietly assembling his own plan of destruction, determined to expose the truth not only to protect Newman's interests but also to prove to himself that he could act independently of his father's shadow. Back in Chancellor territory, the confrontation between Jill and Kane grew more intense, with Jill pressing him about the nice chateau, the fraudulent deal that had defrauded the De Leon family, and the mysterious letters Victor had unearthed that seemed to implicate Kane in the scheme. Kane swore that he had been blindsided, that Colin had manipulated him as much as anyone else, and that his only crime was being too trusting of a father who had betrayed him countless times before. But Jill wasn't buying it, not anymore. Her eyes welled with a mix of anger and sadness as she reminded him that she had defended him to everyone in Genoa City. That she had believed in him when no one else did, and that if these allegations were true, he had not only betrayed her trust but Catherine's as well. Jack added fuel to the fire, pointing out that Kane's excuses always seemed to follow the same pattern: deny, deflect, and manipulate, until someone else took the fall. Kane's smirk faded when Jill's voice cracked as she asked him whether he had ever truly cared about Chancellor or whether it had all been about power. For a fleeting moment, Kane looked vulnerable, admitting that he had questioned his own identity and choices, but just as quickly, his defensive mask returned, insisting that he had only ever wanted to bring stability to a company plagued by Abbott family infighting. Jill's hands trembled as she realized she was staring at a man who might never change, a man who wore the mask of redemption but still clung to the tools of corruption. Outside of their confrontation, the ripple effects spread. Lily Winters prepared to face Kane herself, her anger simmering as she resolved to tell her ex-husband exactly how his actions had affected their family. Nicky Newman, ever Victor's loyal partner, warned Jill that she was blind if she continued to give Kane the benefit of the doubt, while Victor quietly plotted how to use Kane's downfall to secure the AI software for himself. And in the park, Tessa clung to Daniel for comfort, her worries about Mariah bleeding into the chaos as Genoa City seemed to fracture under the weight of secrets and lies. But the heart of the drama remained in Chancellor's shadowy boardrooms, where Jill, caught between her faith in Kane and her responsibility to Catherine's legacy, finally snapped. Her voice rose, echoing through the room, as she declared that if Kane could not prove his innocence, if he could not destroy the software and put an end to the cycle of deceit, then he had no place in Chancellor, no place in her trust, and no place in her future. Kane, cornered and defiant, stared back at her with a mixture of rage and desperation, knowing that this time, Jill's ultimatum might not be one he could charm his way out of.